Hi guys, welcome to Let's Talk BD, the official podcast of the BD School, the first educational platform entirely dedicated to business development. Here we interview business development professionals working in the field every day, as well as startup founders, so they can give you all the insights, tips, and best practices to help you become a better business development professional. Let's get ready for the next episode. I'm Lucia, I'm your host, and today we have a very special guest. She's called Julissa. We met just last year, and she lives on the other side of the world, but I consider her a really dear friend of mine. So, Julissa, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Lucia. Thank you so much for a warm introduction and for always having me here as part of the BD School Friends Zone. And it's a privilege. It really is. And I was very honored to meet you when I did. And I think we have so much in common, and the synergy between the two of us has really shown. And I'm really glad and honored that you have taken me into consideration for a few of your events. And I think what you do with BD School is just amazing. And I'm very blessed to have you within my partnership and within my life as a friend as well.
Thank you so much, Julissa. And for all of you listening, it might get ugly. We're going to start crying. I'm telling you. So let's see. And well, indeed, as we were saying before, we met actually less than a year ago when other two friends of ours, Milton and Lorena, which we are going to have soon, hopefully, on the podcast, they invited both of us in their LinkedIn Congress. And yeah, we just hit it off immediately. It was amazing.
Amazing. It was such a great experience overall. And I met a lot of great people, you being one of them. So it was awesome.
Nice. So yeah, the topic of today, or let's say the title of this episode, is Beyond the Limits. Because, well, when we first met and you told me your life story and your journey so far, I was just so inspired by all you told me. And really, if I had to summarize, your experience is really beyond the limits. It's, you're just, you push yourself. It doesn't matter how, you never give up. And I think it's very inspiring. And I think as business developers, we need a lot of that too. We should never give up. So what a better person to talk about that than you. So yeah, I would like you to just, describe a little bit your life journey so far and why I think you're so inspiring.
Wow. Well, thank you, Lucia. Where do I start? It's so much, but if I start from the time until I started experiencing life events and things that shapes everyone's life, I probably would say in my mid-teens years when I was around 17 and 18. I was born and raised in the Dominican Republic. And since we were younger, probably in the early, when I was 10, 11, we already knew that part of my parents' plans, my plans, was to move to the United States, specifically going to New York City. As you all know, I'm going to disclose my age around with this comment. In the 90s, probably New York City was not like the most glamorous and appealing city for parents to raise a child. And I recall that one of the biggest fears of my parents, specifically my mom, was to send us to New York City school system. As a result, they decided that they were going to hold on to sending us away earlier and rather wait until we finish high school. I think it was a smart idea because probably I wouldn't know if my mom would have done something different or my parents would have done something different. Me being in such a tough school system would have shaped my life completely. So although I feel that it cost me some struggles to adapt later in life, but at the same time, I think thinking about it, I think they did make the right decision. So arriving to New York City around at the age of 18, already finished high school. So, as a teenager, you moved in from their environment, and that's like such a horrible tragedy for them.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like the world is going to end. You leave your friends, like, oh, your friends. I'm leaving my friends. Like the most amazing thing for that person at the time. So I moved to New York City when I was 18. didn't speak English because obviously in the Dominican Republic, we do speak Spanish only. Coming into a system that it was tough back then. It's not what it is right now that you probably find someone that speaks Spanish in a lot of different locations. So all that translated for me going to college. For instance, I was a little girl. I always, I think it was one of the few kids that always wanted to go to school. Not few, because there's so many people like that, but at least within my family circle, I should probably clarify that. And and I always wanted to go to school and be an architect. That was like my biggest dreaming. I love drawing. I love creating. I love arts, and I always knew I wanted to be an architect. One of my best friend also wanted to be an architect. So that's another thing. You create this
Nice.
complicity, like, oh, we're gonna be an architect together. Obviously, we broke apart, not in friendship because we're still friends until now, but because I was moved. And then going back to the point that I arrived to New York City. I was lost. I totally lost. Nobody in my family knew anything about the school system. At the same time, I didn't speak the language. I had no knowledge, no information about admission process or anything of that nature. And everybody would tell me, oh, yeah, go to this college. So everybody goes there. That's not the right way of choosing a college. And then we'll talk about that later. But now that I know it, and I just picked whatever college I saw that was close to my house. Wrong statement. And then trying to study what I wanted, I assumed that my parents couldn't afford it. So I kept thinking, I cannot do this. I'm going to have to pick something else. I just took the catalog and I started looking at whatever was there. And I was like, okay, meeny, meeny, money, mo, this is the one that's going to go. And it's literally just picking up from the catalog, not from my point of passion in calling. And that was the first thing that I had to make based on that challenge. So after that, I finished that and graduated with a 2 years degree because I thought that's the only thing I can afford. That was my limited belief back then. It's I can only afford this. I work part-time, put it on credit cards and max the credit card to pay tuition. And then after I finished, got a great offer at one of the jobs that I did my internship. And then I said, let me work and pay off these debts. And then eventually I go back and continue to do it. Little thing I knew that way was going to take about 10 years because then life got into the way and you start building more responsibility that does not leaving you giving you money for college. And 10 years later, I joined another amazing organization in which I worked for 14 years. And they have a lot of student benefits. And I leveraged that, went back to school, and then pursue my bachelor degrees. I also did a bachelor degrees in theology based on my own faith in ministry. And also then I did my master degree. But it took me a few years to do it, and also some debts, because at the end of the day, master degrees here in the United States can be a little bit expensive.
Yeah.
And even though your employer are generous in providing you with support, there's always something you have to come up with. And obviously, you're now an adult. Yeah, you have a very expensive no life, but you have things to expend, and obviously end up with a debt. And that was like the nutshell. There's other things, but I'll leave it up to you in a few minutes.
Awesome. Yeah. And one thing that I always liked, since we started getting to know each other, was really this thing that you're constantly learning, and you did so many different things. Like, it's like if you lived so many different lives. And well, I'm a learning freak. That's how I identify myself. So listening that there is someone else out there that is just ready to just get their hands dirty and learn so much is just so cool. And well, you mentioned already something about moving to the US, especially as a teenager. It must have been difficult, but how did that play out when you grew up? How was it to be in the US and build a career there, basically?
I think the fact that I was born and raised in a country that was more low pace, different upbringing. It was tougher, especially in the city that I came into. Back and as I mentioned earlier, back in the 90s, New York City was really, really tough for the younger generation outside. And I think the cultural change was hard. Having to face discrimination, Probably not because of my ethnic or my skin color, but I think more for the fact I couldn't speak the language.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like a driving point for me. And I remember I had an experience at a fast food restaurant that I was working at, and was there only literally getting off the plane. I mean, I think I arrived here in August of 19. Oh my God, I'm gonna give my age. 1992. And don't forget what age I said before when I arrived here. Please don't calculate the time. So I
No.
arrived in 1992 in August, and I started working at this place probably like around September, October. So literally, and it's funny because since I always like English, I used to sing a lot of songs, and part of my hobby in DR was just to collect songs. Now, we didn't have Google there. So sorry, millennials, no Googles for us. We have to really struggle to find those lyrics. And one of my best friends, Sophia, who lives in France right now, that was our hobby. On Wednesday night, we had this radio station that only plays American music. So we have 1 week to find those lyrics. And then we'll sit in front of the radio and record it. Oh my God, I'm giving so much my age. And use that tape recorder and go back with a pencil.
I totally see myself.
Oh my goodness. And we used to sit right in front of the radio station just to listen and then start singing. So one of the things I always teach people who want to learn the language, and I said, sing, even if you don't know how to. Mm-hmm. It helps, exercise the muscles of the tongue. So the reason why I'm saying this is because when I arrived to New York City, that actually brought out some conflict because people thought I was able to speak the language because I had little accent compared with other people. Like I will tell you, hi, how are you? And you couldn't tell I didn't speak the language because I said it well. And then you started talking to me and then I got lost. I was like, yes. And I will yes everything. So going back to that scenario, the reason why I faced discrimination is because my manager at the time, he gave me a command and I couldn't understand. So I had to call one of my coworkers to interpret for me. And then she gave me the instructions, and then at the end then I was doing something else, and I don't know what happened, but he was not happy with something that he asked me to do and I didn't understand, and he got upset and kind of yelled at me. And I don't take that very well in public, even back then. And I said to him, and I said to her, just tell him that just because I don't speak the language, it doesn't mean I don't have a brain to think about things. Tell him to give me a year and I'm going to prove to him that I'm going to exceed more of his expectation. And I resigned and I left. I left that place. Awesome. I left the place and I left beat up. I don't deny. I don't know how I was able to come up with such a strong statement because that it's not my nature, but I was upset. I was upset the way he made me feel just because I couldn't understand a language that I was not born with. And he was not being human. This whatever year old, so people don't take notes, girl just came here a few months ago. Give her a break. I left and I started walking on the New York City street. Walking. This is very New York. New York City. New Yorkers say walking.
You can hear your accent coming back. Totally.
Now I can hear it. So I started walking on a very famous New York City street and going back home and crying and feeling so miserable and so humiliated just because I couldn't speak the language. And the fact that someone was judging my intellectual, my ability to do a simple task just because I couldn't understand the command. So that was a really experience that shaped most of the rest of my life after that.
Oh, that's so inspiring and interesting. And when you said like I would reply a few words in English and then people would think I speak English, that's exactly my daily life in the Netherlands. Like I always tell them in Dutch, I don't speak Dutch, and then they keep talking to me in Dutch. I'm like, no, I really can't say anything else. But yeah, that's we get there, and we're privileged here in the Netherlands because everybody speaks English, so it's easier, let's say.
That's
Cool.
awesome.
And well, of course, well, it was challenging, I would say, then at the beginning, but definitely that didn't stop you, obviously, judging of how far you went. So to speak of more positive, on a more positive note, what is the most, like, the proudest achievement you had so far, and also considering the challenges you faced at the very beginning when you moved to the US?
I have two, and I consolidated into one because one it ties into the other. And number one was having the courage to pursue higher education, and even the financial struggles, and even the time struggles. More than that, probably at one point, because now I'm in my 30s. When I went back to school, and some of my classmates were high school, just finished high school. So I was not always the oldest in the crowd, which for me, I it was good because I was the more talkative, obviously, because now I'm coming with work experience. They don't. So sometimes they don't like me too much. But I think it's just the fact that I at that point I had no life, because it was work, full-time work, going to school. And I think this story is not unique to me. It's a lot of people do that. But now it's going to work, going to school, very devoted to my ministry, my faith at my local church, and working with adolescents, and we'll talk that later, on that. But working with and very committed to that part, and left me very little time to socialize. And I think pursuing that education and being consistent, and even the people who said, "Are you crazy? You're going to a master? Could you just graduated in July?" And I wasn't going to go. And I remember and admire this professor. He said, "Julissa, go for it." And I said, "But I'm tired. I just want to, don't take a break. Go for it." I said, "But I have no, just go for it." And I signed up in interview, because it was an executive master. It was different than the others. It takes longer because it's an executive master. You have to have experience in a field to be accepted, and went through the process. In less than 3 weeks, they accepted me. And I started like 4 weeks later, and my friends were like, "Are you crazy? You just finished like a 4-year college and going through so much." And now I said, "I have to do this." And I remember my nephew asked me, Titi, that's like, that's the short for auntie.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, "Titi, why are you studying so much? Because why you go to school? Because you're doing good a job. You have a good job." In his mind, you're rich. And I said, "I'm not rich." He said, "Well, you have a car." So people who have cars don't mean they're rich. They just were able to buy a
No,
car.
indeed.
And then he said, "But why you go to school?" And at that moment, I said, "Because of you, your brother, and your other cousins. I don't have children of my own yet." And I said, "Because all of you and all the young people that look after me, I had to lead by example. And if for some, even if I feel I'm doing very successful at my job, that doesn't stop me from pursuing a career, because I always feel, and I give this advice to a lot of my mentees, a degree opens the door for you, and your knowledge and education and your work experience will give you the job. Like, someone only looks at your resume. They can't see your personality through a resume, through an interview. They see that you graduated from whatever college or university. Oh, wow, Harvard. Let me call this person Harvard. But when they speak to you, so, "Well, she's not really a Harvard material because somehow you made it to Harvard." And that's not, I put that case just to make him more familiar with the entire world. But what I'm saying is education is so important. So that definitely was one of my proudest. And the fact that I was able to instill that passion of some of the teenagers that I work with while leading a ministry at my local church. I'm very proud to see how they're doing now. One of my website has some of their testimonials, and many of them they're all finished their bachelor's. Some of them are about to start a master. As a matter of fact, I just spoke to one of them on Monday, and she had asked me to give her a reference letter for her master degree. And that is just such a proud moment, not for me, but for the mission and the passion that God has still instilled in my heart. that it'll display later on through this interview. But I think that has been my two proudest moment. Be able to finish my master's degree at that age that I did. Not that old, okay? And I'm not that old. I'm probably
You're young.
exaggerating, but with the struggles and the difficulties, and show to my younger generations that it is possible. Your only obligation when you under your parents' care is to exceed expectation in school. The rest will come right after. And now that I'm working again with that generation, I have amazing examples of how it looks like when a kid does what they have to do, and when parents support them the way they're supposed to. So that's what I know it was long, but my two proudest moments, finished my school, and when I did, and also being able to mentor teenagers for a long time and see the results now.
Yeah, and when you said that you were proud that one of your mentees asked you for a recommendation letter, I can totally relate to you. Like every time, like really the thing I love the most about the BD school and having created it, it's really like the impact that we have on the students. And when they send me messages and so on, like, and they're so happy, is just so fulfilling. Literally everything else goes after. So that's I can totally see where you're coming from, and that actually brings us to the next point, because of course you did many different things in your life, but at the moment you are a coach, you're an entrepreneur actually, and you have your coaching business. Tell us more about that.
Thank you, Lucia. Well, it started. I think I've been a coach for so long, and I just didn't know it, and I just call it differently. But I know back at the college that I graduated in New York City, I was able to participate in their executive mentorship program that they have for undergrad. And that's when I started probably doing more and more of a formal setting, because as I said before, at my local church, I was working with teenagers for almost 10 years. And I was also a Sunday school teacher. So at the Sunday school, I had the youngest one, normally 9 to 12. And then on Fridays, for almost 10, 11 years, then I was working with the teenagers, 13 to 17. And I took care of, I handled different, not generations, because they're not 10 years apart, but different siblings. Like now some of them might be in their late 20s and other early 20s, which is the last group that I helped. But I think it started officially last year as a result of this pandemic. I know, as I said before, a lot of my stories probably are not only unique and related to my own life, but the outcomes might be different on people. I mean, I was working in corporate America up until July of last year, 2020. I did open my business 2 years ago, and mainly was concentrating supporting business owners with operationals organization, with structure, with career development for their staff, or helping anything that has to do with operational administration. So when I started doing a coaching program last year with this amazing coach and friend, Bertha Medina, and I was still working for this corporation, and then COVID came, and I was laid off. And this was a company that I only been there like for a year and a half. I work most of my career. I have made it at this international bank for 14 years. I worked for them in different areas. My last 5 years with them was as a project manager in construction. Then I moved to their provider company, and took their account. So I was managing 59 of their branches in the US. Because of COVID, they closed 80 locations, 26 were mine. So I was the last one to arrive. So you guys do the math. Then last one to arrive, lost portfolio. Then it was just a business decision, a tough one for everyone, especially for me. And I had to admit, you're not going to disclose this to anybody, right, Lucia?
I will cut it.
You got it. My pride was so hurt, because in my mind, I always I'm always an achiever. I want to achieve. I want to meet the expectation of my employer. For me, it's like, I'm proud that they're happy with my work. And now, how dare you let me go?
I can totally relate to this as well. And you see so much in common.
You said you let me go, and I remember I had my coaching session that week with my coach and my other peers, and I burst in tears, and I was like, I can't. I'm not gonna. I love acting, but I'm not gonna do it here for the audience. How I was crying, but yeah, and then my coach was telling me, listen, maybe this is just an opportunity for you to go full time on what you really love. And I say, yeah, but how am I going to support myself? I have responsibilities that I cannot take it lightly. Make the long story short, then I decided to go for it. And I remember my manager told me this is a big company, so they have all the accounts. And she said, let's just find you a job at another account. And I just got so proud and I want those little goose. And I no, I'm gonna take a break. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna be crazy. And I said, no, I want to take a break. And no, I want to take some time off to take care of my business and dedicate time, because I had it for almost a year and a half by then, and it was a very low pace. So I started coaching, and I started originally promoting coaching for people who want to become a coach, which I still do it, and that was part of the program that I was part of, helping other people to structure their own coaching program and what's the message they want to deliver. But my creator had different plans with me. Because for me, mentoring teenagers it has never been a part of making money. And
Mhm.
that was my struggle. It's like, how am I going to charge for something that I give for free, that I've been giving for free for so long? How dare myself to do that? So a simple phone call one time around September, October last year, from my old friend from my previous employer. And she said, I heard so and so laid you off. And I said, yeah, can you believe? I'm still like really upset. I said, can you believe they left me off? And I said, listen, why don't you start coaching teenagers and with school stuff? I remember when we used to work together, you always like with teenagers around and adolescents, and you always mentoring and talking to them, and you're so good with college stuff. And and I was like, okay, yeah, but I don't charge for that. I do it because it's my calling. And I was probably part of it, and I didn't mention that, but I went through 9/11 event in New York City. And I remember when I was very close to knows what, because at that moment you have no clue. We had no clue the tower had just collapsed. We just saw the rumble, and everything got dark. We were in a nearby building, and I just told and I had to do this parenthesis because that probably was the starting
Mhm.
point. And I don't talk a lot about it because I don't I do it when it's the moment, and that's why it just came back to me, because it reflects to that. My coworker was really scared that what was going on, and I said, don't worry, just stay with me, because nothing is going to happen to me. I still have so much to do in this life. And that was the year that I actually started going to the church that I grew up for almost 18 years. I had started that church in April, and 9/11 happened in September. So I think that was a point that later on it hit me, and I said, you know what? I said one time that God kept me alive because I have a big purpose to do. I always said this, that there's something in the financial platform that I'm in, that I'm getting some licenses, like if I have nothing else to do. But one thing that I started implementing and talking is like, you leave a inheritance, you have a legacy and a legend. Inheritance is when you pass away and you give your asset to your loved ones. Legacy, it's because your grandchildren remember you. But a legend is when people that had no relationship with you still benefit from what you've done.
And it's
So
starting. You got me crying. I knew that.
so so I want to be a legend, and I said it very humbly, not because I want people to remind me. Yeah, it's nice. It's important. I remember my coach when I started doing my coaching program. I'm glad you guys not seeing this. When I started doing my coaching program, one of the questions she asked as part of it said, how you want to, if you were reading your own memoir in 40, 50 years, or something that talks about your life, how would you like people to read it? What is it? How would you that letter would say that? And I remember I wrote down, and I'm careful to say because it's not about me, and people who know me know this. And I said, I want people to say, and I said, and because of her, thousands and thousands of adolescents and young people have been able to achieve education. And just because of the impact that education brings to people, and in my own struggle, and knowing that I only needed one person to tell me do A, B, and C instead of me struggling trying to find my A, B, and C. So I started the coaching program. I started October is the college month in the US, so it was perfect timing. I started my advertising. All of a sudden, like my whole coaching platform changed. I started writing, I started investigating, searching, creating PowerPoints. You know the deal. And I launched it. I started with five students in November, and they are almost there. One of them already started in January, his college career. He is in the aviation business field. And one of my students this is the time that they're all getting their acceptance letter. So I just heard from one on Friday, and I'm meeting him this weekend. He got accepted to 4 schools, and one of which is a very elite university in New York, and almost a full ride scholarship. And that's what I want. I want to duplicate that, not because of me, just because people deserve to have good education, and there's so many talented people there that the only thing they lack of information and resources. So I want to, I'm trying to bring this as a nonprofit, God willing, at the end of the year. That's one of my biggest plans, and I start working into creating opportunities for young generation and get education. That's one of my biggest thing right now. So, and that's how I started my coaching platform. I still coach adults, so don't be intimidated. I can do adults too, but I love the younger generation. I just love the impact that a little piece of advice can do in their lives.
Absolutely. And well, I said before I had to say it because it's just so inspiring. And well, that's just, I think once you have the calling and the purpose, you just have to go for it. And indeed, you just have to accept it. And sometimes people think that, when you start something on your own, or I don't know, if you want to help other people, somehow there is always a selfish reason, while it's actually a lot of responsibility, especially when you work on education, because you're really trying to help someone take the best out of themselves.
Yes.
And I really don't see any other more selfless act than that. So I think that's absolutely amazing what you're doing. And I know that some of our students had some calls with you, and so yeah, you keep inspiring. That's really good.
Thank you. It's my honor.
Awesome. And well, of course, we talked already about your biggest purpose and so on, but just, as a last thing, what is it that you would recommend to any young person, starting their career right now?
Identify someone that you could look after, and even and start knocking doors, volunteer. Even if you find this amazing professional, someone is even better if it's in the field that you want to pursue. Talk to them. If they don't, if you feel that you're not, because this is a relationship base, so you both need to feel like you're connected. If you don't feel that connection, then move on into the next one. There's so many talented professionals out there who are willing to give back, who love sharing knowledge. So look for people who can share knowledge with you, and embrace that and leverage that. Leverage your relationships with those. Keep them close. Give them updates about your what you're doing. And very important, be grateful. And grateful means just send them a nice note. Let them know how much what they did for you impacted your life, for 2 things, because it gives you that sense of satisfaction and gratefulness to you, but also the person feel inspired to continue to, not that we sometimes need it, but it feeds that part of the soul that you say, wow, I need to do more. If I was able to change this life, then let me change another life. And encourage other people to do the same. I think it's just look for someone that you could look after. Not one, like 1, 2, 3, 4, as many as you can. I have so many mentors in my life, and I still, and just this morning before I joined this podcast, I text one person that he always texts me every Friday, and I said he always does it first. So I was like, because I had to wake up earlier for this, I was like, I'm gonna beat him today, because he usually texts me around 10 o'clock in the morning or 11, and I'm getting started like around 9 o'clock, but he sometimes he does it like around 6 o'clock in the morning. So no, I'm not beating him at that time. So this morning I text him and I said to him, I'm gonna even read it literally. And I said to him, "Good morning, my friend. I am grateful and blessed to have your friendship. God bless you, amigo. You are so awesome." And I thought that actually he just replied as I was doing this. He said, "Good morning, happy Friday, Jefa." Jefa in Spanish is boss. He always calls me boss. I'm not his boss. He's my mentor. He said, "I'm grateful and blessed to have your friendship as well. You're awesome too, Julissa. And what are you doing today?" You see, a mentor can never stop being a mentor. Like,
Absolutely.
and look how he ended. And this is, guys, this is live, because this message came as I'm recording this. Is what time it was? It came at 8:40. No, 9:22, and I sent it at 8:40, just before we joined this, in the morning Eastern time in the U.S. But this is what I recommend. Just find a mentor. So find people who are willing to help you, support you all the way through. Ask questions, look for opportunity. I don't know in any parts of the world, but there are funds right there and resources for people to be able to do education. But you have to do your part, and your part is excel on your grades. Good grades when you're in high school, in elementary, can take you to places. Don't take that for granted, and do the only thing that you have to do, which is study.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Julissa. And for all of you listening, well, I kept it for last, but I'm so happy that Julissa is also one of our mentors. So I will, of course, make sure that you can reach out to her later. We will put some links in here. But for now, Julissa, it's always a pleasure. So I had no doubt that this call would be as pleasant and happy as usual. But really, thank you so much for all our audience. I'm just so happy that they can all enjoy your presence and your inspiration. Thank you so much for being here, and everyone else, see you in the next episode.